All right, all right. Welcome to Songs Garage. Today we have Bay Area hip hop legend Lyrics Born. Real name, do you mind? Tom Shamira, aka Lyrics Born. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think it's you have 10 plus albums, more, way more. Born and raised in Berkeley.
Born in Tokyo, raised in Berkeley. Yeah.
Okay. How old were you when you moved to Berkeley?
Well, we came to America. I was probably two or three,
Okay.
and then yeah.
All right. I'm just gonna read facts because I want to get into like real conversation, but I think I gotta plug you because a legend needs to be explained to some people that are ignorant. So all right. So you got. So you are known also as like the hardest working man in show business, over 100 to 150 shows a year. Is this true?
Yeah. It varies, but usually no less than 100.
No less than 100.
Usually not.
And how many countries?
Well, it year by year it varies, but I try to do at least 3 to 4 per year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow, amazing. Amazing. I mean so that would go to kind of my next statement or words, 2 words, journeyman.
This is so funny. I'm sorry.
This is Racer M, by the way.
He just kind of nods.
Do you have any questions for lyrics?
I'm just listening, and then I'll jump off at a point.
All right. So journeyman, and I would say a journeyman artist. Just cut into the fat. I would say, when I think of you, I feel like I have to work harder as an artist. I have to be more sincere. I see how you have fun with your art and your craft, and then also, at the end of the day, man, I stand back and I go, I admire this guy as a man.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
As simple as
Likewise,
that. So,
man. Thank you.
And it's an honor for you to be sitting in my garage.
Thank you.
Just kind of share some of your, journey.
Sure.
I'd love to hear where you found your music, man.
So I guess when we moved from Japan, the first place that we lived was Salt Lake City, was in Utah, and so I was in Utah from the time I was like 3 till about 6, maybe. And I know it's only 3 years, but in my mind, when I look back, it just felt like such a long time, to like the experience felt like I felt like there was so much going on. When you're a child, it feels like time lasts longer, and it was really a place that was sort of there was a lot of fun things about it as a kid, but there was really no music, and so I wasn't really exposed to music until I moved to California, when I moved to Berkeley, and then at that point, I think I was in the 2nd grade when we moved, and I had heard Sugar Hill Gang for the first time, and I knew all the words to the song before I had even heard the actual song, because all the kids would be rapping it on the playground. And I'm like, what is that? You gotta, it's hard to put in context now because hip hop is everywhere now. Oh, oops. I just broke your shit.
It's all right. It's all right.
Okay. Because hip hop is everywhere now. But back then it was, you had to seek it out, if you really wanted to hear it. But all the kids were rapping it on the playground. And so I was like, what is that? And they were like, oh, you don't know? And then they just rapped the entire song. And so you couldn't help but absorb it. And then finally I heard the record probably a couple months later. And by the time I had heard it, I knew what it was. But it was just so mesmerizing for me, to hear rap and rapping, because it's not something that like you could go to school for. Like it's not like you could take guitar lessons or singing lessons. It's like, even to this day, it's entirely a self-taught art. There's no, I don't, maybe there are people out there, but you definitely can't go take rap lessons,
Right.
And so I fell in love at first sight, or upon first listen. And I didn't start trying to do it myself, though, until probably, I wrote little raps, little rhymes in the 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. But it wasn't until I got to high school where I got around like other people that were doing it too. When I got to Berkeley High, and I started actually writing seriously. And then, you know, I did that, you know, for like all throughout my freshman year. And then I kind of got discouraged with it, you know, and then I picked it up again, but I still stayed a huge fan. But then I picked it up again.
Well, where did discouragement come from?
Because I was sort of the peewee of the crew, you know what I mean? And I don't know, it was a tough position to be in, you know? Like all my mentors were a lot older than me, you know? And it was kind of like, you know, guys that had a lot of local fame, you know?
But did you feel like your Asianness prevented you from fully feeling like you could partake in the conversation?
No.
Never?
No, I never felt that way, you know? And I think maybe it was because where I was from, you know, the Bay Area, particularly at that time, was so diverse, you know, especially later on. It wasn't unusual to see somebody like Dan the Automator or Q-Bert or, you know, and then 10 minutes away would be like Too Short, or, you know, or Hieroglyphics, you know, Souls of Mischief. So we all kind of grew up in this very insular, special place. And so to see somebody that looked like me doing what I was doing, it really wasn't that unusual. You know what I mean? I really didn't realize how unusual I mean, I guess I knew on a certain level, like it was unusual, but I didn't really experience that feeling firsthand until I started touring, like nationally and internationally. It's like, maybe we talked about this before. I mean, this is fast forward way in the future, but like, you know, there were moments where like we would play certain towns, like, you know, I think we talked about this earlier, where, you know, my wife Joy and myself were the only two people on stage, might have been the only two Asians in the entire city, you know, but that was kind of interesting. But at the same time, it also illustrated to me how powerful music is, because we just sold out this show. They don't care. People don't care. It's the music that that resonates with them. It's the art. It's the feeling that they get, you know? And I think that in itself was also just an invaluable learning experience. It was like kind of touring the country for the first few times, you know, just kind of getting the vibe of the country and, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, you know, there were definitely in the 90s and in the 2000s, however, you know, there were certain moments where it was very difficult, not really not from peer to peer or from myself to fan, but like being in an industry that wasn't used to seeing people like us, you know, that was kind of tough, you know, like walking into an agency, a record label, you know, a PR office, and really being the only Asian American in the entire building. You know what I mean? That was kind of tough because they just didn't understand. And to this day, a lot of people, they don't understand the cultural significance and the importance of what we do. You know what I mean? It's so much more than just, Sung's an actor or Lyrics Born's a rapper. There's so many more layers to it, and it's so nuanced. And I don't think the industry at large understands that. You know, sometimes.
To their defense, to a little bit, it was because when I met you, it redefined, first of all, what a hip hop artist was. It redefined what an Asian male like musician was. It actually redefined what like an Asian male to me was. Right? I was like, how this guy is so familiar to me, but yet like I haven't seen it packaged with him, with his eyes, with his face that is similar to mine. So when I first saw you on stage, it was like I was looking at you going, wow, this is inspiring, because if I had, you know, that passion for hip hop, all I needed to see was you. And it's not because you're just posturizing or you're going through the motions. I was looking at you going, well, this is like abnormally, like there's some gift in your voice. Like your voice is like, you hear it and you go, what? Where is this coming from? It's like it feels like, almost like, spiritual hymn voice that was like passed down generation and generation. And then I see it from like another Asian male. I was like, whoa, this is crazy. And to me, when they would use you in commercials, like, do you think you did like a Pepsi or Diet Coke commercial or something like that?
Yeah.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I felt like, oh, this is them kind of looking for what is the modern idea of urbanness, urban hip. And I was like, yo, that's him. And because it came from Bay Area had a certain kind of swagger, had a certain inclusive kind of Asian kind of foundation.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And I felt like whoever the PR company behind that campaign, because they were looking for like this fresh voice of what is like, finger on the pulse hip today that's connected to this hip hop music as well. And then I was like, yo, it's like the perfect example, right?
Right.
And I felt like you were like a pioneer in that, where if I were like a young, like aspiring hip hop artist that happened to have this face, seeing you, it's like and no offense, but we're just older now. It's like just to have an OG, to have a mentor. And I mean, that was something that I missed and desperately seeked as an actor coming into this time. It's like, yo, a version of me, like, help me, brother, older brother, like, what were the trials and tribulations? What were the mistakes you made? Where do I need to watch out for those pitfalls, right? And also, not just because they're successful on a financial or business, but then you go, well, as you get older, those priorities shift, and then you go, well, who's the man behind? Who are our heroes? And I always feel, man, it's like, even you can tell so much about somebody on their Instagram, and when I go through your Instagram, it's almost like a positive charge in my life to go, hey, have fun with your art. Don't take yourself too seriously. Share, be passionate. And his energy is exactly the same from when I met you like a decade ago, and that's what I want to kind of share with this audience and with the people listening. It's like, how do you keep that light,
Thank you for all that. That's really, I really appreciate that, man. That's really, I really do. I think it's everything that you just said. I mean, I really love what I do. It's the only job I've ever had. It's really the only job I've ever wanted. And I think you can't take yourself too seriously, And I like the living that I make, but it's never been about the money for me either. It's always been about, at first it was like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could make a song where I could, incorporate XYZ element, just something really simple and kind of crafty. It just started with that. And then as time went on, it would be like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could do 10 albums in my lifetime? And then from there, it was like, you know what? But then as I got older, it was like, just the importance I felt like of what I was doing started to broaden, and I was like, wow, wouldn't it be cool if I could just carve my place out in history, and that, as time went on, that became kind of the driving force for me, Now,
but carving your place in history for what? Like, what's leave behind?
For kind of what you said, I mean, it gives me a lot of pride to be able to say, to be the first, to be a pioneer. I mean, I don't take that lightly, For me, people say that, and for a long time I rejected it. It's like, I don't care. I'm just trying to make good albums. However you feel about it, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. But now I've started to own it, I feel like, a little bit more the past 5 years, I would say. Because at a certain point, I looked around and I'm like, wow, I've been doing this for over half my life professionally, and it doesn't seem to be slowing down, and how long can I keep this going, in a positive way,
Right.
Like, wow, I really have the opportunity here to, to do what so many of us haven't done, and to make it easier for the next generation, Like, I always, there's on not my last album, but my album before, it was like, there's a line where I say I'm rounding the bases for folks coming now, for faces just as beige and names ending in vowels. You know what I mean? And that's really important for me at this point, because I don't want, it shouldn't be as hard for the next generation as it was for you and I, you know? And if I can contribute to that in some small way, just to open up the industry a little bit more, or to show that it can be done, you know. So, you know, we did album number 12.
Wow.
I'm getting ready to drop 13 and 14 this year.
Wow.
And, you know, it gives me a lot of pride now to be able to say, you know, to be the first, well, it's like I say, and Don't Quit Your Daydream, you're the first Asian kid to make a greatest hits in the history of American music. You know what I mean? Or first one to hit 10 albums, first to play Coachella, first to play Lollapalooza. It's a big deal. It's a big deal for us, especially.
Yeah.
And that's what I think a lot of people, Asians understand the significance of that. People of color understand the significance of that. I think for a lot of other folks, though, particularly folks in the industry, they don't understand what that means, you know, for a group who has been historically challenged and perhaps excluded, you know, from certain parts of society, and certainly from showbiz, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, you know, at this stage of my career, it just gives me a lot of pride to be able to do that, you know, and really not having changed anything that I've done. You know, I mean, I still have the same objectives musically. It's just, what can I do on the next album that I haven't done on the last album? Mm-hmm. What can I do? You know, I still make albums the same way. I mean, I just take a look, step back from the landscape. Okay, what can I do that nobody else is doing? And then I just sort of insert myself there. Or what can I do that I haven't done yet?
Yeah.
You know, and I insert myself there, you know. And so, but yeah, I mean, I try not to take myself seriously. Same song, you know, Don't Quit Your Daydream, you know. I still pursue it with that sense of humor, that sense of newness, that same exuberance, you know. And I do, because if I didn't feel good about it, I would have stopped a long time ago. If it was about the money for me, I'd have quit a long time ago, you know. It's not. It's really not. It's because, you know, I think at this stage of my career, I'm just more mission driven, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I have more stories to tell, and I think I have more things to say.
Yeah.
Not always, but, you know,
Yeah.
at this moment I do.
Yeah,
you know?
I mean, and it keeps a freshness, you know, like when I meet you, like I meet young people in this business, you know, it's like fellow actors, and they hit success early and, you know, I think when they hit that success, they didn't know who they were or what their why was, and so you see like an old man in front of you, right? And I always use that word, like, as an artist, man.
What do you mean by that? You see an old man in front of you?
Yeah, like, you know, they lost the joy. They lost, like...
And this is a young person?
Yeah.
Wow.
And you go, what happened to you, man? It's like, why are you so mad? Why are you so bitter? Why do you want to leave?
Yeah.
Well, what else do you want to be? Why do you not want to be on set? Why do you want to be in your trailer? Like, as an actor, I go, this is what we've been dreaming of, to be on this playground together. Mm-hmm. And where's that light, man? Where's the fun? Like, you know, as an artist, you get a bunch of artists together, it's laughter, man. If you're there for the right reasons, it's just this, like, infectious, like, innocent, idealistic laugh. And if you got the right, like, leadership, and they're there to, like, fuel each other, opposed to be divisive or ego-driven, yo, the magic happens. And that's where, like, you know, for me, I you know, constantly am fighting to normalize, like, nonsense in our business, right? Because when there's money in business, sometimes the truth isn't told. Like, you know, if you're fucking up, or you're being an ass, or, yo, you're on the wrong path, it's so important for somebody in your circle to go, yo, you gotta stop that, humble yourself. Then, you know, these monsters, or these ego gorilla, you know, these ego monsters are created. And I see it, man, and that's why I keep using that, like, that light behind, you know someone's, you know, eyes, where I go, yo, they have success, they've seen the world, they tasted the best, but how is it that they wake up with this, like, drive to touch other people in a positive way, right?
Yeah, I think for me, I've had to fight for everything, you know, so. I never had a major label deal, you know, nothing was ever, like, easy, you know. It's like, so all those things that a lot of my peers, this business is not easy for anybody, okay? That's the music business. Brutal, You know, it's not easy for anybody. But when you're an independent artist, and I don't mean independent now, it's a little easier being an independent artist now, which I love. It should be. But, you know, coming up in like the 90s, the 2000s, what's the word for the 2010s?
The tens.
The tens.
The tens.
There it is. You know, it was, you had to fight. You had to fight for everything. You know, you had to fight for studio time, for attention, for market share, for radio play, for stage time, for a spot on the touring calendar against all these other bands. You know, you really had to fight, you know, and if you didn't have that inside you, you know, you probably weren't going to make it, you know. And so I think for me, I just appreciate everything. You know, I'm really grateful for everything that I have, because I'm well aware of how much it's taken and how much sacrifice it's required, not just from me, but from the people around me, from my family, you know. And so because I know just how much of myself I've had to give up in order, or not give up, but give in order to achieve a level that some artists may just take for granted.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It's the same song, man. You know, Don't Quit Your Daydream. It's like, you know, I hear these artists throw tantrums. There ain't enough room for more Grammys in my bathroom. You know what I mean? Like, can you imagine? And not one of us has ever walked that stage, still to this day, and gotten an award.
Yeah.
So, and this is something that, you know, that's why it kind of makes me upset sometimes when I hear artists of any genre like say, yeah, I keep my Grammys in my bathroom, or yeah, I don't know where my Grammy is. It's somewhere in the garage somewhere. You know what I mean? It's like we've had to work so hard just to be even seen in that same light as some of these other artists, and so I really appreciate those moments, and I think that's kind of also what keeps me humble. You know?
Yeah. You know, there's many parallels with, you know, the Hollywood and then the music industry. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's not to get on the soapbox and complain, but I hear it from, you know, my fellow, especially, you know, male actors, right? Asian male actors, is that, you know, the craft of acting is something that that conversation we're not actually ever invited to the table to have a conversation about. I mean, you know, they kind of look at us as like a singular device. You know, it's a martial arts thing or something exotic, right? But you know, to talk about like process and to talk about like journey, to talk about, you know, systematic approach to the craft of it.
Right.
You know, it's interesting where
The craft.
yeah,
Just the craft. Yeah.
we're not actually allowed to have that conversation. You know, and it's that's why I feel like it's so important to have mentors. You know, it's like sometimes I wonder, and I go when I meet like a young actor and they go, hey, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have been inspired. And then you look at the opportunities that are presented for them where they don't walk around with the same kind of looking over their shoulder as I do. Their cadence is different because I think, you know, YouTube, all these things, the world is more global. You know, K-pop is infiltrated.
Right.
There's a different self-identity, a self-awareness, and you know, idea of place in this world as an Asian male today.
Totally.
Compared to a guy in my generation where I go, am I invited here for the right reasons, or is this temporary? You know, I'm always like one half, I'm just aware. It's like almost like a defense mechanism, and I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that I wear that jacket around in society daily, like kind of always second guessing the people around me. And I would love the kids that come after me never to have that issue.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's something to be said about being street smart and, you know, having that edge and, you know, knowing you got to fight for, you know, the scraps, but then to feel that, hey, in environments you're not wanted because the color of your skin. And then something that is supposed to be so idealistic as art, music or acting, and just because of our face, we're not fully allowed to participate. You know, that's something like you go, yo, we have to keep fighting. We have to, you know?
You almost have to like to fight.
Yeah.
It almost has to be part of your DNA.
Yeah.
Especially our generation,
Yeah.
of artists.
Yeah.
It kind of has to be part of your DNA.
Yeah.
And I think, that's interesting that you said that, because I always wanted to ask you about that, because you were doing it at a time where Crazy Rich Asians didn't exist. You know what I mean? Always Be My Maybe didn't exist. Fresh Off the Boat didn't exist. It was you. It was you and maybe a handful of other guys, and men and women, And I think the difference, though, when I talk to, a lot of my actor friends or director friends, is that, well, particularly my actor friends, you're dependent upon the script largely that someone else writes for you.
Right.
You're dependent upon what you're offered. When you make music, when you make records, I create the narrative. You know what I mean? And as an independent artist, especially, as a recording artist these days, I'm not even dependent on record labels anymore. So I don't even need the machine anymore to put out my narrative, my creation, And so I think it's a little different. I think musicians in general, artists in general, that's why we can afford to be more outspoken and more, because we're the one, we're writing our own scripts.
Right.
We are, and if a label doesn't want to put it out, which would be the equivalent to, let's say, a studio doesn't want to put it out, we'll just put it up on the internet and do it ourselves. Done.
Yeah.
It's not an issue.
Yeah.
I'm not dependent upon anybody creating an opportunity for me. So it creates a different sort of, definitely a different narrative, but I think it creates a different sort of frame of mind, So it's just, I think we're very fortunate, for both of us to be able to do what we're doing.
Yeah.
But I think for a person like myself, if I want to make a song about anything in the world, I can pretty much do that. And I'm not dependent upon anybody to give me the stamp of approval. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So in that regard, in my field, I'm really fortunate.
Right. Right.
So I can have this kind of countercultural voice and not be worried about, gatekeepers, keeping me out. Whether or not fans will gravitate towards it, that I have no control over.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
But the platforms are just different in that regard.
Yeah. Distribution. The fact that you could create a YouTube channel, get your message out.
Yeah.
SoundCloud, right?
Yeah.
That was always the hardest part, is that you can create a film, you could put your heart into it, but if it's not accepted at a festival, if it doesn't get a certain distribution, who's going to see it? Your parents and the friends that worked on it, right? And with today, that's the thing. Is I keep, sometimes I wonder if I'm starting to sound like an old man, where I go, man, if I had the tools that are available today.
But that's just truth.
Yeah.
That's just truth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, man, it's like, I see the world moving ahead of me, because when I meet these Asian, male or Asian American YouTubers, right? And I'm thinking oh yeah, we'll sit down and I'll share knowledge with them, and they'll have some interesting questions, and I sit down with them and they've already moved on. Right? I go, they're so fast, and they don't have the same hangups that I do. Their fight is not my fight. My fight is not their fight. They're kind of thanks a lot, but they don't really even understand. It's like your dad going, I fought in the war to save you. That's why you got, public school. That's why you got roads.
Yeah.
That's why you got democracy. And the kids are like, what?
Yeah.
I kind of look, I'm feeling like, OG, where I look at the kids and go, maybe, even the journey is different now,
It's different.
Yeah.
And I understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
But if you really step back and think about it,
Yeah.
that's what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take my son, for instance.
Yeah.
He has no idea what I had to go through to give him the life that he has now. And I don't want him to. I mean, I want him to, but I don't want him to experience what I had to go through in order for him to have the life that he has now. You know what I mean? Right. So that's how I kind of look at the younger artists too. There's no way they will know. you know, what they went through. But we did it for them, and so that they don't have to think about, you know, what we did.
Yeah.
So they're able to sort of stand on our shoulders, and ultimately that's what we want.
Yeah.
That's what we want. And there were times where, like, you know, I do hear a lot of older artists sometimes say, man, they just don't understand, or this new shit, these new kids, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, we can share our experiences with them. It'll resonate with some, it won't with others. But you have to take pride in the fact that they're able to succeed because of the things that we did.
That's right.
You know?
That's right.
And just be okay with that.
That's right.
You got to just be okay with that, you know? Not you. I'm just saying, you know, like even me, myself, it's like, I can't be frustrated because the new artist didn't have to sit there in his driveway and hand stick labels that he made from Kinko's on blank white vinyl 12 inches like I had to. I don't want them to have to go through that.
Yeah.
I would rather have them be able to just upload all their music, you know, to Spotify or, you know.
It's like the nature of parenthood, right? You want to leave
That's-
a world that's better
that's
for
what it
them.
is. Yeah.
And then it's just a cycle over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You might not be, you know, appreciated, but it's there.
And you know, I mean, you have to look at what you have also. I mean, I told you this. The way people see you, and like when we've hung out and I see people around you, I mean, you can just see it in their eyes. They're just so inspired, you know, and it really, like, to me, that's so amazing to watch, you know, like this guy that I've known for 20 years, you know, and I know how hard it's been, and I know the kind of work that you put in, you know, and I think I can identify more than most, you know, and I've been around you, and I see how people talk to you, and I see how, like, you know, just awe-inspired that they are of your journey, and just inspired in general. And I think to me that's immeasurable. That's invaluable, you know, and that's something that a lot of our peers will never understand, you know, is just, you know, the journey that we've had and the survival skills that we've had to learn. It's a totally different set than some of our other, you know, our peers or our counterparts, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, you know, but to be honest, man, I just look at it like you may feel that way, or some other, like, older artists may feel that way about a younger generation, but think about what Sammy Davis Jr. had to go through, or I think about what James Brown had to go through. You know, they couldn't even stay in certain hotels. They couldn't even eat at certain restaurants on the road. You know what I mean? Yeah. You know, they couldn't even travel down certain roads, you know, and when I think about that, I don't complain anymore. You know, I just don't complain about what I have to do. Should it be this hard all the time? Nah, probably not. I don't want it to be that way for the next guy, you know, for the younger guys. Mm-hmm. But think about how those artists must feel about our journey. You know, they may think that it was a piece of cake for you and me.
Oh, yeah.
Compared to what they had to go through.
For sure.
You know,
Yeah,
I mean, look how amazing this is. We're set up in your garage. You can talk about anything you want.
Yeah, yeah.
You can talk about anything you want, you know? And,
I mean, we're just a few generations, like maybe 2 generations. I'm maybe 1-2 generations removed from, you know, Japanese Americans being locked up in internment camps. Right. I remember I produced a movie with Pat Morita and Mako. Both were nominated for Academy Awards. I don't know if people know that out there, but they're both Sam Pebbles for Mako and Karate Kid for Pat Morita. Mm-hmm. And I remember it was this thing for me. So it was so important because I needed to be around like these like living icons. Mm-hmm. Like I would read about them, and Mako, you know, was part of the theater world in New York, and his, you know, cadence and his style of acting was, you know, more method and theater based, traditional than Pat Morita came from comedy, who's more, you know, kind of just
brilliant,
off the hip, right?
Brilliant, yeah.
And you know, being around those guys, it made me aware that, you know, the stuff and the struggles that I'm going through as a Asian actor in town, it's tough. There's limited opportunities, but then, yo, Pat and Mako were put in camps,
bro.
You know, they were just like, yo, you were born here, but you're Japanese. You're in camps. And when they came out, I was kind of sitting there, and I would talk to them during, like, in between takes, and go, why would you even pursue acting when you were the enemy? You were enemy number one.
Right.
So what were you going to go out for?
Yeah.
Japanese soldier.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
But you go, dude, if I were their parents, I'd go, that makes no sense.
Right. Totally.
What opportunity are you going to have? Why would you even do that?
Totally. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But if they were not around,
Yeah.
they would have not opened the doors
Yeah.
to desensitize the American audience to
Yeah.
Pat Morita, like,
Yeah.
an Asian kind of, American kind of sensibility to comedy. He was
Yeah.
foul. He's the Red Fox of Asian America.
He was brilliant, man.
Right?
I love
so
Pat. Yeah.
he needed to go
Yeah.
through all that. Mako needed to go through
Yeah.
all that to show the Academy that, we're actually actors.
Yes.
Right? Even if I'm playing the Japanese kamikaze
Yeah.
soldier, right?
Right.
And so, like, what we're going through
Yeah.
is compared to what they're going through.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
It's nothing.
Yeah.
Think of what they had to go through. See, we live in sort of like, we have like a dual life, because, we're artists, but we're also artists in an industry that not necessarily used to us, what I mean, historically. So, but think of, I mean, how many roles did Pat have to do with an accent?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Mako too. That's
Do you know these people?
I'm familiar with Pat Morita, and I believe I've heard of Mako.
yeah,
You know what's crazy, right?
yeah,
Is that to me, Mako represents like almost the foundation in my idea of what Asian American male acting in this country is. And to his generation, he's only maybe, what are you, like 10 years younger than me, maybe it's around there, right? But it's irrelevant. That guy's irrelevant to him.
yeah.
And that's crazy. That's crazy. This guy has like no. Pat Morita, Karate Kid, is part of this zeitgeist, right? That he has to know, but he doesn't. He probably has never listened to his like stand up, right? Shame on you.
Hey, I know Anime Wong, not that one.
What does she represent to you?
She's an ACT test question.
Horrible. Shame. See, that's
funny,
the
man.
problem.
Yeah,
See, but that's where you go. Hey, man. At the
Yeah.
end of it, you can't never take yourself too seriously.
right. I mean, you can't.
No.
Because you'll kill yourself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's just, like I said, think of what those guys went through, man. Not only in the industry, but like you said, in life. Have all your possessions, your worldly possessions taken away from you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's what's happening. Meanwhile, they're in this industry that is, especially at that time, was really hostile. you know?
Yeah.
So when I think about that, I'm just like, okay, it was and it is infinitely better for you and I than it was for those guys.
Yeah.
And likewise for the next generation.
Do you think
it's
that's
easier
true,
for them.
Racer M? Because you're a generation below us or after us.
Mm-hmm.
So do you feel? I'm not saying that you are an Asian person because he's in a mask. But if you were, do you think in the world that you live in without the mask, you feel that you're marginalized?
Oh, sure, but not as much as the people before. And then I'm sure the people after me, if I were Asian, would have it an easier time then too. But it's just a cycle that keeps going. And hopefully, when you have that torch, you're pushing it as far as you can, and then you hope for the best for the next generation.
That's such a PC answer. Like, it's a great political.
I love your response. You said that you went,
I'm sorry?
I don't even know what you said, really. I don't know. What language was that? Like, I'm serious.
shit.
Like, what did you say with that statement? So you keep pushing forward? And my question was, do you feel in the world that you live in, do you feel, if you were Asian, do you feel that makes an impact on how the world sees you in the world that you live in today?
Oh, sure, because it normalizes it. Because I feel like when you don't see what the other possibility is, you don't know it's a possibility. If that makes any sense. Like before I saw
what the
more,
hell does that mean?
Yeah, what's that
I
mean?
mean, like, growing up, there was one moment where I would watch a lot of movies with single digits, and I remember thinking, like, I wish I was white. And it was a very, like, passive thought, and I didn't think anything of it. And it was only when I got older where I realized, like, wow, that was the impact that it had on me. And it was something where I didn't know what the alternative was, because I always watched, like, you know, Hollywood movies. My parents aren't like cinephiles, so I'd only watch like American movies. So I didn't know that there was this other thing. And it's something that I think that both of you have done, is like pave that way and make it like, okay, here is another way. And then hopefully each successive generation will push that idea forward so that it's no longer like, oh, what's another option? Bless you.
Yeah, thank you.
It's like, okay, we all have a seat at the table.
Oh, it's a good answer.
Yeah.
It's a good answer. Was that my question?
I don't know, man.
But it was a good answer. We use that answer for another question.
That's hella fun. I think, difficulties aside, though,
Yeah.
we're amazingly lucky.
Oh, yeah.
You know, we're amazingly lucky, and we're incredibly blessed to be able to, A, do this for a living, number one.
Yes.
Number two, not worry about tomorrow necessarily, you know, and the fact that the full spectrum of our work is deep. It goes decades now at this point, you know, and that's not many artists can say that, period, you know. And like I said, you know, it's really crazy to me that after all these years, you know, a lot of times when I do shows, like we'll do meet and greets and stuff like that afterwards, or you know, I'll get these, you know, DMs on Instagram or, you know, on Twitter and so forth, and you know, I tend to spend a lot of time in my head, you know, and you know, thinking about what my next move is going to be, what's my next song, what's my next album, what's my next, you know, and you have this list of goals that have yet to be checked off, you know, and sometimes I let that get the best of me, and I don't always think about all the beautiful things that I've been able to achieve and experience, because I'm always focused on tomorrow, you know.
Yeah.
And I was talking to my wife about that, you know. She was like, you know, think about all those people that have came up to me, or you know, at the gigs, and have been like, you know, your songs helped me through, you know, I was in prison, or I was suicidal at one time, or, you know, I had to get my nerve up for a job interview, you know, or I was trying to get through finals, you know, or, you know, I was going through cancer treatment, or, you know, da-da-da-da-da. And I had your music to help me through, you know.
Yeah.
And that is just like, suddenly all the shit that I haven't done yet doesn't even matter. Because when you look at the way that you've affected people, and it really changed the way that I thought about music. Because sometimes, you know, when I'm writing songs or whatever, I'm writing about what I feel strongly about at that moment. But then when I'm done with the song and I record it, I just move on to the next one. And I'm not really thinking about what happens when it goes out into the ether and how it resonates with people. I don't really have control over that. And I'm not in everybody's car or in their house. So I really have no idea how or where these songs land, you know? And to be told that so much, you know, over the years, you really start to see that your art has more value than just sound going in people's ears. You know, it really does create it really helps people. You know, when done right, it really helps and inspires people. You know, and that is, it took me a long time to really appreciate that aspect of what it is that we do.
Yeah,
you know, and it's like I told you, when I saw people, when we were hanging out, I guess back in San Francisco for that time, and you know, just to see, to be, you know, have people in our presence, you know, and like I said, I could see how they would react to you because they're familiar with your body of work, you know what I mean? And it just, you can't take that kind of shit for granted ever, you know, and it makes the bad day so much better, You know,
Yeah.
it makes the bad day so much better. You know, because it's tough. It's a tough business,
Yeah.
man. You know, for any artist.
Yeah.
You know, it's a tough business, and you know, it really teaches you a lot about gratitude. You know, and makes you see your own self-worth in a different way. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, and look, this is, you know, these type of conversations is not sitting here complaining. Like, I know where I stand, you know, and I know what I have, and I know the opportunities I've gotten.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's really like sometimes I go, yo, man, I wish I could talk to the 20-year-old version of myself, tell him stop getting in your own way. And this is like kind of like this, you know, free-form conversation to go, if people are kind of going on this journey themselves, looking for artistic value or looking for artistic footprint, listen to this conversation, and hopefully they get something out of it, or they learn something not to do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
So, yeah, I subscribe to, you know, your perspective on life is like, yeah, man, struggle, you know, it equals gratitude if you're able to twist it and make it positive. And at the end of the day, also, man, I have a very cowboy attitude about things. It's like, yo, it's gonna be tough. It's supposed to be tough. And when, you know, young dudes like complain to me and they like, you know, they bitch and complain and whine, I look at them and go, yo, man, you ain't cut out then. It's just the basic message is to keep going. And I do not, you know, like when people react or, you know, I look at my kind of body of work, I go, yo, I'm not even close. I haven't even started. Like I go, I feel like I haven't even gone onto the field yet. Like I've just been playing D-League.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you've been doing it for such a long time. But I don't want to be known as the dude that's been doing it for such a long time. I want to go to the show.
Yeah, totally.
You know what I'm saying? So I still got that hunger. And I go, where's that hunger? Where'd that hunger come from? It's because I've been starved.
Totally.
You know, and when that thing is starving, it's like, but then I've had to learn to not make that into a negative and be bitter and be jaded and go, yo, why not me? And how come you? It's to really step back and go, all right, what are the more important things, man? It's like with success, if I can't share, pass that forward. If I don't have good people around me to like, you know, find the spotlight in those quiet moments that are not red carpet and have nothing to do with show business. Yeah, you know, there's no point. No point in any success because it's all alone, right? Yeah. All right, thanks you all for tuning in to Songs Garage. That was part one of a two-part podcast with legendary hip-hop artist Lyrics Born. Thank you so much, LB, for coming over and dropping off some knowledge. Thank you for your energy, your constant support in the community. You paved the way for a lot of other hip-hop artists behind you, so thank you for your endless contribution back to the community. Make sure you guys tune into part 2 of my podcast with Lyrics Born. He talks about fatherhood and his journey of raising a young man in today's world. Definitely got a lot of insight from that. And also we go deep into toxic masculinity. And we talk about how we can be more responsible as mentors, especially to young men out there. So hopefully you guys tune in, get something out of it, and let us know what you think. Y'all be good.
Still pursue it with that sense of newness, that sense of humor, that same exuberance. I saw myself and it came into being. I gotta be honest, I just call it like I dream it. I ain't leaving that success. I ain't in your top 10, that's a lack of respect. It ain't my fault majors don't sign Asians. It is my fault we now in the conversation.